Thank you, Sylvie-san. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here because right now I'm working as a dean of the Faculty of Law at the Gakushûin University, and the deanship, or the manager position of any institution involves so many meetings and paperwork and all those unnecessary things to do. So I'm really happy today coming back to my favorite field of China research. Welcome. Before I begin the very interesting drama of the Chinese countryside, let me introduce something about me. Oh, let's see here. All right. I guess it's okay. Yeah. This is me on Beijing University campus. The time is 1981. I was young. As you look, boy. Let's see.
Can you use that arrow?
Oh, here, right.
Yes.
Good. At the time, Beijing, this is Tiananmen Square. You see some buses and bikes, and one amazing thing about Beijing 1981 was air was so clean. And those two portraits, Lenin and Stalin, were still standing right in the middle of the Tiananmen Square. So those were the days. And on the street, there was Maoist slogans. This is said, great Marxist Leninism, and hurrah for the Chairman Mao's thought. So those were the days also. I joined the group of American students. That was a second visit of the American students after the normalization of the relations back in 1979. So we are the second group of people, American students, who visited Beijing. So we got very good reception from the Chinese side. Obviously, the Chinese side had every effort to take care of our visiting American students. They're really curious what kind of people they are. And then we are engaged in some exchange programs. I remember we played baseball with the Chinese high school team because baseball is American pastime, so Chinese are really need to learn from the Americans. So the American students, very young guys, having good time in the, this is, I think, Mean Tombs. Right now, if you do this on the statue, writing on the statue, you cannot do that. There is kind of fences around there. But at the time, we got special treatment. Or you can go on. Go ahead. The one guy was taking the photos. He looks like a professional, semi-professional photographer anyway. And this person, this young fellow, my classmates in Beijing, turned out him. Oops. Oh no, too far ahead. Oops. Back.
Slow to react.
I see. Do you remember him? Secretary of Finance of the first Obama administration, Timothy Geithner. So Tim was there. We played baseball, and I pitched, and Tim was a catcher. So I hope he still remembers me. But anyway, so those were the days of the U.S.-China, the beginning of the U.S.-China relations. 10 years later, I moved to Hong Kong. This time, I was appointed to the cultural attaché at the Japanese Consulate General in Hong Kong. That was my first job with the government. And then, so I was in the United States when the Tiananmen Incident broke out. in 1989. So my expectation coming to Hong Kong was still China is living under the cloud of that tremendous impact, political impact of the Tiananmen Incident, because hundreds of people got killed in Beijing, and Chinese leadership was in serious trouble at the time. So I went down to Hong Kong expecting something very politically sensitive and very serious situation in Hong Kong. That is not true. In Hong Kong, business was booming. This is the stock exchange market next to our Consulate General building. And if you go to Hong Kong, you enjoyed good dim sum lunch very cheaply. And then, this is the one of those hotels in Hong Kong. And at that time, 1991, still the last period of the British occupation, British colony of Hong Kong. So it's kind of, we are enjoying the last days of the British Empire. So what's wrong about it? Because, the Hong Kong people really love to accept all those British or Western things, including good hotels, good accommodations, or a good transportation and everything. But once across the border to north, to Shenzhen, that's the southern tip of the Guangdong province. And Guangdong province is the southernmost province of China. Well, I'll show you the map later. There's about 40 minutes travel on the very plain train, the subway. If you get on the subway in the central Hong Kong station, 30 minutes later, you get to the, transportation point to mainland China. You walk across the kind of wide bridge. It's in the building. Walk across the building and then past the passport station, and you are in Shenzhen. You're in mainland China. So I took that trip as soon as I got to settle down in Hong Kong. Shenzhen looks like this. This is the Shenzhen station, which China built a year before. Young people coming from Hong Kong, for what? For shopping, or for some business deals, or just for fun. Because mainland China was so close to Hong Kong. And Hong Kong people have special passport to getting in and out of China. So getting in and out from mainland, it's so easy. We foreigners have to pass the passport check. And we have to, write a small sheet of paper, entry sheet and exit sheet or something. But Hong Kong people have nothing to do. They just show the Hong Kong residence card. They can enter and come back to Hong Kong very easily. And what I saw in Shenzhen was quite amazing. This is what happened in Shenzhen in the summer, August. I remember it's August 1991. What's going on here? You see quite a few buildings, behind the, and here's a red kind of car with a huge drum. So this is some sort of ceremony is going on. And actually my first assignment was participate in that opening ceremony of the Chinese cultural village just built in Shenzhen. It's a huge theme park, just like some sort of Disneyland in China. But the display is about Chinese traditional cultures, local cultures, minority cultures. Miao people and the Yi people, and how they dressed the costumes, all those things. It's kind of a mini theme village. And this is the opening ceremony. And I found beautiful ladies. What are they doing here in the sunlight? Obviously, there are service ladies who are providing the shade for those chairs in front of them. So those chairs, these people were sitting on the chairs. Who are they? I got so curious. And what's going on was quite amazing. I thought Hong Kong or, Guangdong and Guangzhou, everywhere, people were suffering from that, the outbreak of the Tiananmen Incident. So people were maybe kind of worrying about political purges, all those things. But in fact, this is what's going on in Guangdong, in Shenzhen, in 1981. So I got so curious. Who are they and what they're doing here? Now, coming back to more objective, say, the numbers. What happened in Guangdong in the 1990s is this. Double-digit economic growth in the following 20 years. Massive inflow of the foreign direct investment. Special economic zones grew all over China. In the 80s, special economic zones only restricted to the 4 small pieces of lands, 3 of them in Guangdong. The one main thing was in Shenzhen, just this. But in the 90s, all over China, all those special economic zones are spread all over the place. So by the end of 1990s, everywhere in China became a sort of special economic zone. So what happened was, hello, market economy, and so long, planned economy. And people were forgetting quickly about planned economy. There was a saying, very popular saying in China at the time. The Chinese people are very cynical people. Do you know that? They face serious reality. So maybe the one way to getting away from it is they put very political jokes. They liked it. And they're pretty good at it. Patriotic Beijing, that means Beijing people must be very patriotic to avoid the purge. Shanghai people, Shanghai is a new city built 100 years ago. So they have pretty good access to foreign countries. So Shanghai people are willing to go out of the country, departing China. What about Guangdong people? Guangdong people are selling their country, selling China. Traders. What mean the traders? They are actually selling the land. That's what happened. Now I'll show you some very familiar graphs. This is GDP. Say, this is the numbers are very, very small. But see, this time, this is 1991 is here, 1992 is here, and after very slow growth, after the Tiananmen Square incident is right here. So obviously, after the Tiananmen incident, the all over GDP growth was really rapid and rapid on and on and on. And if I show you this is the foreign direct investment into China, actual use of the FDI, that's a foreign money. It's, again, inflow began in 1992. Very rapid inflow of the foreign capital, the foreign money. And 80% of those foreign money come from Hong Kong. So this graph shows how much money flows into China via Hong Kong. And this is I copied from the very good map of this is kind of industry trade map. The size indicates the volume of the trade, the share of the trade. Well, this is a map of China in a way. So Beijing is here, and Shanghai is here, and Guangdong shares this. So this is a map of the 1987. So in the 80s, the end of the 80s, 1980s, already Guangdong's trade is 50% of whole China. So you see how dominant the economic importance of the Guangdong province. And Guangdong province used to be a very, very poor region. When I traveled from Beijing, 1981, in the end of the summer, we traveled via Shanghai by railway. There was no super highway at the time. So we took the kind of regular express train. It took maybe 2 days from Shanghai to Guangzhou. Anyway, we arrived at Guangzhou station, and then the economy was so poor. The kids running barefoot. So the Guangdong province was one of the very poor provinces at the time. But by the end of the 1980s, Guangdong's share in China's economy was really dominant. So what happened? So I felt at the time the need to look on the ground, actual people, actual peasants, actual workers, actual local cadres, and what's really going on here, besides all those propaganda stuff in Beijing. Foreign enterprises in Guangdong who made investment in early 90s made a record profit, more amazing profit. Secondly, Guangdong districts in Guangdong, I mean the local governments, sold their land use rights to the foreign companies and became rich. That's a miracle. The other provinces in Guangdong followed the other provinces. That means like Hubei or Shanghai or the other provinces followed Guangdong soon. And by the end of the 1980s, China had achieved the miraculous economic development and became the factory of the world. That's a fact. And the source is a Japanese business person I happen to know, and he wrote short pieces in last year. And when I read his paper, he disclosed lots of things actually going on because he is also a company manager. He was the apparel maker, and he made a fortune by himself. Now his factory, apparel, manufacturing factory, he moved out of China. He's now working in northern Thailand, but that's another story. But anyway, so there must be the mechanism of the miracle. 3 components: people, goods, and money. If you get a combination of all those 3, you have a very good chance to get economic progress. So what happened was starting from the people. People mean young, cheap, hungry, and literate workers. And China's potential excess labor force in the countryside. At that time, China's farming consists of about roughly 60 to 70% of the whole GDP. So they have excess labor, young people, mostly female, females in the countryside. They have no job except taking care of their homeland. And they are forward-looking and very well-educated Chinese local cadres, local people, local government officials. in the local government. Local government means China has like a cluster of the local governments, and what I mean is say Shen. Shen means like a county level cadres. County is a traditional unit of the Japanese government. Normally consists of about, say, from like 150,000 people to larger county must be like 600,000 people. It's almost like a big city, but actually that's a countryside. It's a locality. So those people are pretty well educated. Why? Because they belong to the post-cultural revolution generation. So China's university didn't operate. I mean, they stopped teaching students until, I say, from 1967 to 1974. So about 10 years, there was no university education at all. But 1974 and 77, most of the national universities started teaching students. Now, those graduates from those 70s coming of age, they become like 20-something, 30-something, becoming young local cadres, and very good education, and they're looking for something to happen. They are very competent and energetic Japanese managers and engineers. Engineers are very important because we have abundant supply of the very skilled engineers. And those Japanese engineers are mostly out of job because the Japanese so-called bubble economy happened to collapse in 1989. And since that time, Japanese economy goes down and down, down. Some people say like we are suffering from the 20 years economic setback since that time. Still, right now, we are still in the process of recovery. But anyway, so Japanese economy slows down in the late 80s. So those managers and engineers happen to be available widely. Those three parties or people happen to meet in Guangdong in the early 1990s. That's what happened. The people. Here is a picture of one of those Japanese. It's not really Japanese because the company president is living in Hong Kong. Oh, he's Japanese, but he registered his company in Hong Kong. So this is a Hong Kong factory run by the Japanese manager, and here's the workers. You see very young female workers, and in his factory, 90% of the workers are female. Why? Because the job is assembling the computer parts. Behind the keyboard there is a kind of plastic switch, on and off. You hit the keyboard and you hit the kind of plastic switch and on and off. That's a very important part of the computer. But that is so manual labor, and you need good eyes. And you have those workers are literate. You have to read manuals in Chinese, right? So these are those workers. Very energetic, very hungry, and then very skilled. They looked very young. So I asked, how are they? And Guangdong province has a regulation to work in a foreign factory or in any factory in China. You have to be over 18 years old. But they look like 14 or 16. So I asked the company manager, are they really over 18? And he said, I don't know. I don't know. Because China doesn't have any registration system at all. So if you go to the city office and, hey, my birth date is such and such a year. So right now I'm 21. So they said, okay. Right? So this is the way how it goes. This is another picture of the female workers. This is again female workers. This is assembling the lens of the camera. Here's the company name. But anyway, this is how they serve the food in the cafeteria, canteen. There is a swimming pool. Guangdong is very hot. But actual conditions I saw in this same factory is like this. This is those female workers' residence, and I took also the picture of the inside the room. But that was quite staggering. 8 people living in a very small room. There are like 2 bunk beds on one side and 2 bunk bed this side. So they're piled up like 2 rows, so like 8 people. So it's a small room. So the free space is about this wide. So mostly they live in about the one straw mat bed. That's their private space. So I told that Japanese manager, well, this is ridiculous. I mean, this is like, old Japanese Taisho era. All those female factory workers suffered really bad, management and, coming from the countryside and very heavy labor and working for the, silk factory, all those things. And he said, yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it's pretty bad. But Nakai-san, remember, those female workers feel themselves they're really, really lucky. They're lucky making money working in this factory. They're really happy being here. Well. So this is the picture of the toilet. Obviously, the building needs like a water toilet. That those female workers came from countryside where there's no water toilet at all. So what happened is they, in the first week, they really destroyed all those toilet system. So the company manager has to start up the kind of very strict regulation. You don't use cardboard for the toilet. You don't throw in that cardboard paper inside the toilet. Don't do that. And all those aggression. But still, the seats was kind of completely broken, taken away. It doesn't matter anyway. In China, you cannot really throw in your used paper inside the toilet because the water system is so inefficient. That's going to really flood. Remember that. That's important. How about local cadres? What kind of people are they? Here's a picture taken in Shenzhen. And behind, this is me anyway. This is me. Who is local cadre? There's only one among 4. This is me. Here is the so-called World Trade Center building in Shenzhen. And when Deng Xiaoping came over, he obviously climbed up this building because there is kind of revolving restaurant overlooking all over Shenzhen. And from Shenzhen, you can see the Hong Kong, because Hong Kong is just right there. So, I tell you the answer. Here is my colleague, Japanese. This is my boss. So this person is a local cadre in Shenzhen. He came from Beijing. He speaks fluent Beijing Chinese. I mean, educated Chinese. In Guangdong, people speak Guangdonghua, Guangdong Cantonese, which unfortunately I don't understand at all. But this guy came from Beijing and just looked like us. Don't you agree? Very young, very competent, well educated, local culture. This picture is very small, but this is also the assembly of the local cadres. They are kind of promoting to the foreign guests, how well their say foreign companies are functioning in their own county. This is Foshan area in Guangdong, 1993. Okay, next factor, goods. Goods have two sides, supply and demand. Let's begin with supply. What kind of supply China had, Guangdong had at the time? Land lease was widely available, very cheaply. Buildings for the factories are also widely available because, I said that Guangdong was very poor province, and when they built any state-owned factory in Guangdong, they failed badly. So there were lots of empty buildings formerly occupied by the state industries. The state industry is huge. Normally have thousands of workers, but they are out of business by the end of the 80s. So there are lots of buildings empty, unused, available very cheaply, almost for nothing. And you can import, where comes raw materials for the production, or you can import anything, tax-free via Hong Kong. Hong Kong is so nearby. The Hong Kong's port is one of the most efficient deep water port. That's why British came over to occupy Hong Kong, first of all, right? So through Hong Kong, via Hong Kong, you can import anything tax-free. You can bring used machines like, sewing machines or, very primitive, assembly sort of, binoculars, all those things, for the production, very cheaply. Because at the time, as I said, the Japanese economy went down and the Korean economy also showed some slump. So there are lots of used machines available very cheaply, if there are demand. And also those machines are brought into Guangdong via Hong Kong or anywhere. And you can export the finished or maybe semi-finished products out of Guangdong very easily, also via Hong Kong or anywhere. Tax-free. Demand side. There was very strong demand for cheap consumer goods. Do you remember how the so-called 100 yen shop all over Japan? Before 1980s, there was no 100 yen shop in Tokyo. But after the collapse of the burst of the bubble economy, the Japanese consumer got so stingy. They have no money to spend. So they go for very cheap but reliable goods, for ballpoint pen or whatever. And if you go to the 100 yen shop today, you can see almost everything available, made in China. T-shirts, shoes, and strong demand for modular parts. That's very important because modular parts is a very sophisticated part of the goods. Say your wristwatch has modular because probably your watch is, battery operated. So that is kind of piece of the module, and that is an assembly of the very, very tiny small parts. And if you need that sort of mass production of modular, there are two ways. One, go for the very high-tech machinery, building that module by machine. But those machines very, very expensive, easily a couple of $1 million. The other way is you find very skillful workers, very reliable, young, and have good eyes and working hard. Here we have those ladies you saw in the previous pictures. So you get all those modules for cameras and watches made in China, made in Guangdong. And there is strong demand for medium-scale assembly work. Assembly work means assembling all those tiny little parts Most famous is video cassette machines. Videotape. Do you remember a videotape? These days we have a hard time telling, telephone used to be dial, and then there was no push phones in the back in the 80s, but the young guys, they were born with the, gosh. Anyway, so those assemblies is only the small part. In case of the video machine, the tape reading assembly part is very important. That's 80% of the cost. But the 20% of the cost goes for the assembling. The assembling those parts to the in a box of the steel, and then put them in right. So that sort of work was really needed, and that make all those VTLs and home appliances, washing machines, TVs very, very cheap. You see how the price destruction, so-called, happened in Japan or elsewhere in Europe or anywhere in the United States. You see the Walmart or Kmart and everything, and they sell all those from the stockings or T-shirts, but as well as video machines and cameras and everything. There was also a very strong demand for OEM. OEM is original equipment machinery, manufacturing. That's a very, very sophisticated thing because mostly OEM is for the big thing like cars, like motorcycles. So they need very good parts manufactured massively, and so that they can cut the cost. So, and there is such a strong demand. The company managers don't have to worry about sales at all. Once they produce a lot of those things, modules, machines, assemblies, part or whatever, they can sell pretty good. So they don't worry about, just concentrate on the production. Now, the very important, the third factor, money. Where money comes from and how money grows. There is alchemy in Guangdong. I tell you what. In 1987, December, the first public tender of the land use right happened in Shenzhen. At that time, but Chinese government was very, very timid because selling the land, well, it's not the land itself. That's a property right. It's a use right. And normally, the residential area, for the residences, you can get a 50 years use right. For the factories, 40 years. So after 40 years, you have to renew the contract. But anyway, that's a use right. So they're not really selling the motherland itself, but they're selling the use right for 40 years. They started, but they're so timid. And then because of the Tiananmen Incident, 89 June, all those sales all of a sudden came to a stop, completely halt. Local government didn't know what to do. And the central government was too busy with all the political things, right? So they don't have any time to consider about it. But anyway, the sales took place before the Tiananmen Incident. That's very important. And Guangdong's land, as I said, was not suitable for any farming, but very good enough for the factories. And Shenzhen is very close to Hong Kong, as I said, and then to go to the Guangzhou city, that's the capital city of Guangdong, at the time it took 5 hours. And from Shenzhen to Hong Kong, 40 minutes, right? So Shenzhen was very, very close to Hong Kong. The Shenzhen is almost like tiny little district of Hong Kong. So what's happening in Hong Kong was interesting because there were a group of thousands of Chinese managers or entrepreneurs or people looking for business opportunity. Not in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is satiated. Hong Kong has 5 million population. It's a small, tiny little area, just like the inside the Yamanote line. In that small place, 5 million people living. And where to go? Nowhere to go. So they're looking for cheap place, cheap labor. They can use better use of the money. So the Tiananmen Incident in June '89 was a business opportunity, not a political disaster. Maybe a political disaster for the Chinese Communist Party itself, but for the Guangdong people, it's more of like it's more like bonanza. It's a business chance. The local cadres in Guangdong, the central government was busy with other things. And, this is a Chinese phrase, 天高皇帝远, and I like this phrase. The sky is high and the emperor is far away. So that means you can have certain freedom of action. To Hong Kong magnates, Hong Kong millionaires, rich people, a golden opportunity to invest in Guangdong because the price of land lease went down close to zero because there was no demand. All those big factories of the United States, Europe, and Japan was prohibited to invest in China because of the economic sanctions against the Tiananmen Incident, right? For a while. United States kept that sanction until 94. So those people who didn't care about sanctions had golden opportunity to move into China. And that's what happened. The Japanese managers, small business owners, had a chance to make it big. Because starting business, any business in Japan or maybe United States or Europe costs lots of money. Initial cost, initial money. You have to buy the office space, and you have to contract the subcontractors, whatever, all those things. But in case of Guangdong in Shenzhen in early 90s, right after the Tiananmen Incident, starting initial cost for starting like small operation, any sort of operation, t-shirts, shoes, whatever, computer parts, is about 2.5 million yen. 2.5 million yen. If you have a bank deposit of that amount, you can start business in China. And maybe it can be 10 times or maybe 100 times or 1,000 times richer 3 years later. So there was, as I observed during my stay in Hong Kong from 91 to 94, I observed lots of these things. This is a case of Doumen district. This is, the map is too small, sorry about it. Hong Kong is here. And this is Zhuhai, another special economic zone. This is a ferry. The speed ferry takes about 40 minutes. And here is the other side of the, Zhuhai. Here is Doumen district. Doumen district used to be very sleepy farmland like this. Very typical Guangdong back in the 80s. Now this Doumen district turned into very, very industrial city with buildings, newly built buildings, just like Shenzhen. And these are the people investing in this area. And here is the Guangdong Zhuangbao. Oh, this is the title of this newspaper. The who signed this is Zhu Senlin, the governor of Guangdong at the time. So the governor of Guangdong endorsed this sort of investment from the foreigners. What remarkable was the action taken by those Hong Kong magnates. There are lots of rich people in Hong Kong. I just pointed out only three. They stand out so much. First of all, is Li Ka-shing. I have to really mention about him. He is the richest person in Hong Kong, and he is the real estate magnate. And he is like man of legend. Second one is Henry Fok. He is more modest, but his operation is hotels and the resort estates. And do you remember and the third one is Stanley Ho. Stanley Ho is gambling king of Macau. 80% of the gambling house in Macau was his property. And now, today, Macau is already surpassed the Las Vegas, maybe twice as much. So, gambling business in Macau is such a big one. But anyway, those guys are quite active. I'll show you the one example. The picture I showed last time. Where's Henry? Here's Henry. Henry Fok. Li Ka-shing was not behind because this is a picture taken in Zhuhai. And here's the opening ceremony of the new industrial park, and Li Ka-shing is here, right in the middle of those Hong Kong magnates. Where's Stanley Ho? I found Stanley Ho right here. I'm so happy to find him. Oh yeah, he was. And then this person here, congratulating on those investors. His name is Ye Xuanping. And remember his name because I mentioned about him later. Now, if Guangdong left as it was right after the Tiananmen Incident, Guangdong may have some progress, but not much. But fortunately, back in 1992, January, this guy, Deng Xiaoping, came over to Shenzhen secretly because his visit was not reported in Beijing until 4 months later. But local papers reported his visit. I mean, Guangdong papers reported his visit, like, springtime has come. And I was working in Hong Kong at the time, watching Inside China from Hong Kong Embassy, Consul General. And when the news broke out, Deng Xiaoping might show up in Shenzhen. We don't believe it. Oh, that can't happen because official Chinese media didn't report anything about, even a single note. So we are really suspicious, doubtful. So we sent some Japanese people to take a look at that building in Shenzhen. If Deng Xiaoping really came over to Shenzhen, he must climb up that building and take a look at the Shenzhen, whole Shenzhen and Hong Kong. And that was a very right judgment. So our representative saw the motorcade and the small, tiny little guy walking the escalator to the building. All of a sudden, oh yeah, that must be him. And also, Deng Xiaoping accompanied his daughters, 2 daughters, Deng Rong and then what? I forgot his Deng Nang. Deng Rong. So he witnessed those two ladies. Oh yeah, that must be Deng Xiaoping. So we made a very quick report back to Tokyo, and that made obviously very good headline. So Hong Kong Consul General, yeah, okay. But anyway, he showed up to Shenzhen and endorsed what's been going on since Tiananmen Incident. The selling of the land use right with a discount price, okay, that's good thing. All those comrades in Beijing should learn from Shenzhen, should learn from Hong Kong, okay? So all of a sudden, the wall surrounding the Shenzhen, the small area, fell down very quickly, almost instantly. And then all those districts surrounding Shenzhen jumped onto the, this business opportunity. All of Guangdong became special economic zones. They invite foreign investment. They produce any sort of goods, and they export tax-free. Japan jumped on the bandwagon, but only after Hong Kong and Taiwan. Don't forget Taiwan, because Hong Kong means not necessarily Hong Kong itself, 5 million. But among those 5 million, there are lots of people who might from Indonesia, Malaysia, Taiwan, United States, Great Britain, whatever. So Hong Kong means very international bunch of people who are seeking business opportunities, looking for make it big, making rich, right? So this investment took place in this order. This order is very important because Japan is not really the very quick risk takers. But in this case, Japan was in a very good position. I tell you why. Before that, let me explain a little bit about the geography of Guangdong. This is Guangdong province. There are so many districts. And actually, Guangdong is very mountainous area. So this area is quite mountains, hills, and not much good for the good land. But here's Hong Kong, and Shenzhen is right across the Hong Kong, right this area. So I show you the Hong Kong map. Here's Hong Kong, and here's Shenzhen. So when the Deng Xiaoping built the special economic zones back in 1980s, the special economic zone is just right here, this area. So nobody else could enter this special economic zone because special economic zone is basically capitalism. So capitalism must be surrounded by the Great Wall. So nobody, ordinary Chinese cannot enter. But this wall just all of a sudden collapsed back in 1992, January. Then all those areas in Shenzhen, the next door province, county, and all those places, and here, I show you the domain area here, all jumped in the bonanza. So all of a sudden, after Deng Xiaoping's southern trip, whole of Guangdong, this special economic zone is right here, is just expanding all over the place. Then Guangdong had such a early start advantages. And then what happened to the Shanghai? If you're the local leader of Shanghai, what are you going to do? Obviously, you follow the Guangdong, right? Because Deng Xiaoping endorsed it. And Deng Xiaoping said, Guangdong is okay. This is good. Comrades, you have to learn from Guangdong. So all those provinces, Shanghai, Hunan, everywhere, economic boom. Right? Okay. So, I'm a political scientist, so I have to really talk about, background of this economic miracle. Domestic politics really matter. That's for sure. Because then Deng Xiaoping really silenced the local opposition, very conservative side, saying conservative leaders who suppressed that, student demonstration back in '89, they really strong believer of socialism. So once you open up even the small part of the China to capitalism, the capitalism really spread very quickly. So you have to really keep that control over capitalism. That opposition was very strong up to 1984. 84 is the year Deng Xiaoping made the first southern trip. He came down to Shenzhen. So 4 years later, he built that special economic zone, and he tried to open up that special economic zone, but he failed at the time because there is strong opposition within the Chinese Communist Party. No wonder. At the time, the Beijing leaders were reformers. So if Guangdong followed the leadership of the Beijing leaders, there was a chance that whole China, went into capitalism. So Deng Xiaoping failed back in 1984, but this time he succeeded. Why? It's obvious reasons. Because at the time, Beijing leaders were suffering from the nightmare of the collapse of the socialist camp, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, December 1991. That memory was so fresh. So if you don't take up any sort of reform, economic development, you'll be ruined. You're going to go down to the drain, just like Soviet Communist Party. So Deng Xiaoping succeeded in pressing all those conservative opposition within the party. Then also let the very capable, competent manager of the Chinese economy install to the central government. His name is Zhu Rongji. He found him in Shanghai. Deng Xiaoping didn't like very cold weather in Beijing, so he always spent his New Year's days in Shanghai. And then in Shanghai, he found this Zhu Rongji fellow. And Zhu Rongji was very competent, but he was no chance to become the top person of the Chinese Communist Party. Why? Because he was purged in the anti-rightist campaign in 1957. So his reputation was kind of partly damaged. So he couldn't make the top position, but he could make the very good economic manager. So he became the Tsar, emperor of the Chinese economy for coming years. Then made use of the reformist legacy in Guangdong, because such a strong legacy of the reform in Guangdong. The old cadre in Guangdong got in trouble. Among them, Xi Zhongxun, he is the father of the present leader, Xi Jinping. No, his father was a reformist. Do you believe it? But anyway, he was purged, and he was got out of the official position. And Xu Jiatong was the president of the Hong Kong Xinhua News Agency. The news agency was very important because at the time, Hong Kong was British territory. So Chinese government couldn't have any formal official government position there. So instead of the embassy, they built the news agency. The news agency is, in fact, is the embassy of the Chinese government in Hong Kong. He's a president. And Xu Jiatong was very close friends of the reformist leaders who were purged during the Tiananmen Incident. So Xu Jiatong had to leave Hong Kong, but there's some guys left untouched. The one of those guys is Ye Xuanping, the guy I showed in that previous picture. Why he survived the Tiananmen purge? Because his father is a general, very famous general Deng Xiaoping's comrade in arms, General Marshal Ye Jin. So probably the military resisted the purge of him. But anyway, he stayed. And he played, as I showed in the picture, a very important role. And foreign policy of China at the time also mattered, helped. Hong Kong was ready to enter Guangdong, and the local cadres in Guangdong had learned how to make money easily and quickly. This is Xu Jiatuan's that Xinhua agencies with memoir in 1993. And Taiwan was also ready to break into China, into Guangdong via Hong Kong, because Taiwan to mainland direct channel was not there at the time. But via Hong Kong, once you Taiwan businessmen go to Hong Kong, you're Hong Kong people, so no problem getting to China, right? So Hong Kong was very quick. Of course, they know the language, they know the market, they know the people. And Deng Xiaoping's low-key. How long should I talk? Okay. Deng's low-key foreign policy. Actually, this is my field of study, so I can talk for good about this. But I made it short. Deng Xiaoping's low-key foreign policy succeeded in enticing three very important partners into this game. Those partners, first, Japan. Prime Minister Kaifu was a rare initiative of the Japanese diplomatic circles. They took chance to visit Beijing, 1991. Among all those top leaders, Kaifu was the number one person who visited China. Obviously, he got tremendous welcome. And 1992, I still remember this occasion because I was in Hong Kong and I'm talking to the South Korean counterparts. We have like a monthly meeting with all those embassy people, and the South Korean delegates, diplomats, disappeared sometime in the late July. So there was a rumor South Korea and China maybe get along, but he disappeared. And all of a sudden in August, China and South Korea reached a deal. Okay, from now on, South Korea is ready to invest in China. And then after this deal was sealed, that South Korean diplomat showed up, and I asked him, "What you doing during all the time? So we have so many questions to you." And he was, "Yeah, I was hiding. I was playing golf in Macau." Diplomats. And finally, back in 1994, in May, United States dropped the guard. Clinton came to power saying that, those Beijing butchers in the United States were too kind to China. We have to put like human rights against China. But now, at this time, United States dropped that very strong opposition to the human rights and saying, "Oh yeah, human rights are important, but economy is also important." What a present. So, local rules matters. But I have to really skip all those things because I mentioned quite a few of these. Let's see. Right. I'll skip this too. I'll skip this too. But let's say part of my presentation must be on Japan. So there was a Japan factor worked in this drama. What are the Japan factors? The Japanese government kept on very engaging policy toward China throughout the 1990s. Since the collapse of the bubble economy in 1989, Japanese politics got into lots of troubles. And we have almost like an annual new prime minister every year, right? But despite that, tremendous turbulence in the Japanese politics, all those Japanese cabinets, Japanese government kept on pro-China policy all through 1990s. And Japan and the United States got in trouble at the same time. Do you remember the Clinton's first remark at the campaign was, it's the economy stupid. And then he beat, George H. Bush neatly. So the, American, negotiation was aiming at Japan. So Japan and the United States got in a really series of serious trade talks. And the Japanese money and technology and business know-how kept on flowing into China throughout the 1990s. I'll show you the picture graph of the Japanese ODA. Oops, so slow. Here. Here's 1980s. In 90s, you see a huge jump of the Japanese ODA, Offshore Development Assistance to China. ODA goes to the infrastructure of the Chinese, ports, stations, bridges, highways, so that Chinese government don't have to worry about those things. And Japanese companies bring into all those equipments and everything, and the money, and build those highways and ports and everything. So that really helped in the 90s. So this is a Japanese factory. This is the one of those wire harness. Wire harness is the automobiles inside kind of wiring factory. That factory has like a network inside China. So China is located here. So they have like networks here in Asia or those places. So building the factory inside China here is a very easy thing to do, and makes lots of sense. Here is a very famous company. It's Canon. And Canon built a very huge factory in Zhuhai. But everything has an end. So is Chinese economic boom. When did it happen? It's not too clear, but going through all those materials this time, I found that 1997 might be a watershed, because at the time lots of things happened. Like Deng Xiaoping died, and those things. But there's one little event here. September, Yaohan Japan filed bankruptcy. Yaohan, do you remember Yaohan? You don't know. Yaohan was probably the most famous brand name back in the 80s. Because Yaohan's president was such a famous fellow, and he moved his operation to Hong Kong, Baobaiban. So the Yaohan's name is very popular in China. And then why he moved his headquarters in Hong Kong, and he declared that I'm going to build 1,000 supermarket chains in China. Coming 10 years. So he is the representative of that outgoing Japanese risk taker. And his business went on pretty well up to 95. And he built a huge department store in Shanghai. But after that, his business went down and down and down. In 97, he finally filed bankruptcy. And then in 2022, Yaohan was taken over by the Chinese company. So what's going on here is I have no time to pity. Oh, there are some cartoons. It's cartoons in 1998. In the local Chinese cartoonist made those cartoons saying that this is local cadre just sleeping on his desk and with a stamp, and all the thing he can do is approval for the foreign investment. This is very interesting picture. Here, this local cadre worry about those expenses. And this is tax. The tax goes to the states. This expenses go to his pocket. So he said, this fellow, why don't you pay your money to here? Forget about this. So this is how the local cadres, working with foreign companies. Oh yeah, I like this cartoon. Here's obviously kind of very rich foreigners. Oh, here. Very rich foreigners coming to invest in this county. And this county secretary is taking care of him and the lady. And this guy is pushing out all those local peasants. You guys too dirty. Get out here. You're a disgrace over our village. Get away. And then inviting those people for the investment. So I have to skip the other thing too. Yeah, this is quite interesting too. Oh, this is what happened to one of those, land lease project. This guy is enticing all the foreigners. Yeah, our environment is excellent. Our geographic location is pretty good. But once they invested in this land, they are surrounded by the kind of Chinese flag that they couldn't really easily get out. So there was fatal blows for that very rapid Chinese style development, the Guangdong style development. By 2003, labor shortages took place. And 2007, finally Chinese government installed that labor contract law that decided the minimum pay for the workers. So the labor force in China no longer cheap. 2008, the Chinese government decided to allocate the tax for the Chinese national state enterprises registered in Hong Kong. Hong Kong. What's good about Hong Kong is a freedom, right? So those Chinese companies registered in Hong Kong can make profit tax-free. So I mentioned tax-free a couple of times, right, in the previous slides. So tax-free is the essence of Hong Kong business. But Chinese government decided to no longer. Okay, if you invest in Hong Kong, we watch you and assign you 10% income tax. That's a devastation for if you're looking for easy money. And then finally, last year, Li Ka-shing, the guy, top guy, richest man in Hong Kong, he moved his operation to where? Cayman Islands. So, Hong Kong was no longer the safe haven for anyone. Too bad. What happened in the Chinese countryside today? I took this picture last year in Inner Mongolia. This is district capital. You see the huge buildings. There's nobody. This is 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's nobody here in this picture. The huge buildings. Huge buildings are everywhere. This is apartments in the desert suburb of the Inner Mongolia. Nobody's living. So you see, this is a bubble. Maybe. Implications in 2 minutes. China model, so-called China model, is in question. And Beijing, so-called Beijing consensus, is also very questionable. And the second or third revolution, Chinese people tend to really exaggerate the importance of the Deng Xiaoping southern trip. And some cadres are really openly said, Deng Xiaoping made a second revolution. Second means after the Communist Revolution in 1949. Third means probably they count the 1911 Shanghai Revolution. So, anyway, second or third revolution. Was it a revolution? No. And the fourth point is, why not in Russia or maybe somewhere else in South Asia, why not this same sort of development took place? My answer, tentative answer, is this. China model depends on what do you mean by China. You mean Guangdong or Shanghai or what else? Beijing consensus, not much Beijing content there. There's some political initiative, but most of the things took place in Guangdong with Guangdong's initiative. Revolution? No, but maybe in a sense that Deng Xiaoping beat the inner party oppositions. The style he used to beat local opposition was pretty much revolutionary, Bolshevik type, wiping out your oppositions. Russian revolutionary like Lenin. The last point. Why not in Russia? Ukraine might have a chance because Ukraine is very rich, but unfortunately Ukraine was too much divided, East and West. And also, there was no Hong Kong. Crimea Peninsula? Maybe a nice place for a resort, nice place for hot springs, but there was no Hong Kong magnets in Crimea. Too bad. That's the end of my talk, and here is me under the Chairman Mao's picture. This is also back in 1981. Wow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very, very interesting talk. I think I learned a lot today. And, we don't have so much time for questions, so I won't talk too long, but I just wanted to say that I was really amazed and interested by the fact that how you could connect the development with not just locally. Well, we could see very different level of different scales of that all have been crucial in the development of this area, and I totally agree in the fact that we wonder if we can really talk about China or we have to talk about this particular area. And as far as I know from China, in a very different area in Yunnan, this is somehow another word from a Yunnanese perspective. But of course it's connected. Anyway, well, I suppose some other people want to react as well. Yes?
My name is Sato. Concerning the method of the sales or trading of the Chinese, I hear that they are often do imprudent way, which is called harakurogaku. For example, from my experience, for example, when I went to Kampo pharmacy, the pharmacist was Chinese, and he inscripted the Kampo medicine for 1 month. But I was afraid because there might be side effect by the Kampo medicine. So I suggested that was it possible to take for only three or at least 1 week? Then he stick to 1 month. So sometimes, from my experience, there was such a case. So from your experience, whether in China or in Japan, if you have the experience of the method of harakurogaku, please tell me.
I don't operate any factory in China, so my know-how is quite limited. But my main source is this person, this president. Oh yeah, president of this factory. Well, he's a Japanese, and he's right now he's almost like Hong Kongese. But anyway, he tells me lots about how the business runs in China, and then that sort of kind of deception, cheating, is very common anywhere in the world, but not necessarily in China, because China's the starting point of China is a kind of socialist state of mind. So any money making is prohibited. Then from that state, all of a sudden, they moved into the world that anything is allowed. Everything is okay. So there's natural tendency to go into any direction, medicine or whatever thing, just to make money. So there is no tradition of make money in the right way. So this is probably the very toughest part. And for this person, his decision was quite right, because for the first time he made this factory, is 100% his investment. Normally, Chinese side proposed that joint venture. Joint venture means Chinese side has 51% of the stock security, and the other side, foreigners, has 49%. So in the beginning, Japanese side don't worry about that thing. Well, yeah, we're going to cooperate. For details be left to the future or whatever. But by now, it so became obvious that if the business going okay, the Chinese side is willing to take over the rest of the Japanese operation. But his case, he was 100% Japanese capital investment. So he has freedom of act. So that sort of freedom is very important, he said, to protect his own business from all those intricacies of the business deal in China.
So we must be careful about the hard.
Right, and also you have to be patient about the learning process of the Chinese side.
Okay, first, Okay. First of all, thank you very much for this very impressive presentation. You have gathered some very, very remarkable documents from the past that enlightens the future. A comment about what you just said before. Myself, I've been also working for Japanese and Western companies in China. And for instance, for the Sumitomo Group, we had about 14 plants in China, and I confirm that in the case we had 100% control over the capital. The results were tremendously much better than in the case we were sharing with local investors or other investors. So also for a Western company you've been working with, we had 100% ownership in a company in Wuhan, and also it was successful compared with our competitors who had much more difficulties managing relationship with the local investors. So that's one point. But I have a question to you. The past enlightens the future. So I would like to know, recently China is really decreasing very much. I'm still working with a company where we have local production in China. Chinese market is very important for us. The year we have passed is really a disaster. It's a catastrophe. Even compared with the bubble burst of 1992 in Japan, I think the case of China is even worse. Given your experience and your knowledge of the past, and you've been one of the actors or spectators of this economy in China, what is your vision of the few next years to come?
Very good question. I normally travel with the businessman in the late March. My Inner Mongolia trip was also the part of it. So I travel like in the Mongolia, Xinjiang area, Shanghai, Nanjing, places. And then the story is very common because the Japanese companies having trouble inside China and what to do. Because our companies are, say, we have about 20 people go to China with a group, and maybe half of them are business people, small and medium-sized business people. So they have a really actual concern, what to do in the China market. The most clear-cut answer I received is this. If you install the heavy investment, heavy machine, like manufacturing cars, it's very difficult to get out, no matter what the local market is. Second category is somewhere in between, like, some medium technology things and not huge investment, but you work on very important technological side. And most of the industry, Japanese industry, are falling into this category, kind of medium category. The bottom category is labor-intensive factories like this, like this factory. These labor-intensive factories are already gone out of China, pretty much.
To Vietnam.
Right. Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, Dominican Republic, Bangladesh, anywhere. So this is a situation that you have huge, big companies who made very serious investment into China already. And then medium-sized companies who had very important commitment to China market, but still wondering what to do about the operation. So there is no clear-cut answer, and depends on how much your China operation is live up to the local competitions. Like we have a steel company, like New Japan Steel, and then we invested heavily to all those national projects, and now this steel is overproduction, and obviously they have to close down all those operations. And what is the criteria for closing down? The foreign ventures have not much advantages. So those business managers must have very, very hard time. But anyway, I feel like our delegation, we visit all the Chinese countryside in different locations every year, makes lots of sense because we hear kind of different stories from the different places. So the stories in Yunnan province may be not so different from the Shanghai or Nanjing, but there is remarkable differences. For example, this Inner Mongolia, despite all those unused buildings and unused say capital buildings, all those things, some factories are really up and going because the coal is the main source of the Chinese energy, and then coal production is somehow really suppressed. But now, Japan's nuclear problems, all the things, and all of a sudden that coal industry is picking up in the local basis. So they have different story depending on the different provinces and different counties. And also, we traveled like Shanxi province, and then they are closing down all the small steel mills because of the coal was getting so dangerous. But I heard these days those small companies getting so efficient and adjusted to the need of local demands, not really exporting to Japan or anywhere, but for the local production, local demand. So some people might have survived the crisis. And I believe the Chinese are really, really tough people to survive the economic crisis, because the crisis they experienced was very tremendous. So we are often told by our Chinese friends, like, why you Japanese guys are so depressed? Bubble burst. Bubble must burst. But that was 20 years ago, right? Why you guys are so talking about the bubble economy at this moment? Why don't you become more forward-looking,
maybe are you still fine to take one more question, or if there's any?
I think it's time.
Okay, so yeah, thank you very much for your presentation today. Thank you everyone for coming. And we'll see you next time in May, on 24th of May, with another talk about economy, or more specifically economy, which will be devoted to Japan in particular. Thank you.